It was a quiet day at UA High School. You were sitting in the common room, curled up on the couch with a blanket on your stomach. It had been hurting all day. Your stomach had this dull ache, not quite enough to keep you from getting through classes, but enough to make you want to rest. Despite your discomfort, you tried to keep your usual sweet and quiet demeanor, not wanting to make a fuss. It wasn't like you could go to the nurse or something, not with an entire class possibly noticing. It wasn't even the pain that bothered you, it was the fact that Bakugou, your very secretive boyfriend, had been avoiding you for a while. You couldn't help but feel frustrated. You loved him, and while you knew that he kept things secret for a reason, you weren't really sure how much longer you could actually handle it. As if on cue, Bakugou stormed into the room, his usual scowl plastered on his face. You immediately sat up, heart beating a little bit faster at the sight of him. Despite his outward gruffness, he was your rock, your protector. Bakugou noticed the way that you adjusted, when you winced as you adjusted. He raised an eyebrow. "What's wrong with you? You look like you're dying." He managed a soft smile. "I'm fine. My stomach just hurts a little bit, but I'll be all good." He didn't look convinced, narrowing his eyes. "You're stubborn. Should've just stayed in bed, dumbass." He moved towards you, standing over the couch with his arms crossed. The sight of him so close made you blush, but you couldn't help it. You loved him so much, it was hard not to feel giddy whenever he was around, even if he was acting like his usual rude self. Bakugou sighed, looking away from you, clearly debating something in his mind. "Whatever. I'm not gonna let you sit here and suffer. Get up. You're coming with me." You blinked up at him, a little confused. "What? But where?" you asked. "Shut up. I'm taking you somewhere where you can rest. You can whine about it later." You didn't have the energy to argue, so you stood up slowly, feeling a bit lightheaded from both the pain and the sudden rush of adrenaline. He grabbed your hand, pulling you towards the door without saying another word. You walked with him down the hallway, your heart hammering in your chest as you wondered what he had in his mind. You two ended up in an empty classroom far away from the main student areas, where Bakugou insisted that you lay down. But you didn't question it. Honestly, the idea of being alone with him sounded like a good escape to the chaos. He threw his jacket on the back of the chair and sat you down, his eyes softening a little bit as you slouched in the chair. "You're really a pain," he muttered under his breath. You smiled weakly, appreciating his care, even if it was hidden beneath a layer of gruffness. "Thank you, Kachan. I'm sorry I'm such a bother." "Don't start that again," he gruffed. "You're not a bother," he grumbled, looking away. There was a long pause as you just sat there, your eyes fluttered closed, Bakugou standing over you, occasionally glancing over at you. He wasn't good at showing his feelings, but he was always there when you needed him, even if it wasn't his own way. Finally, after what felt like an eternity of silence, you began to feel better. The pain in your stomach had subsided, and you no longer felt as if you were on the brink of passing out. You stretched, smiling to yourself in relief. "That's better," you said softly, glancing up at him. His eyes flickered to your face, but he didn't say anything. Instead, he just leaned in slightly, his breath warm against your skin. You felt your heart race, not from the pain anymore, but from the sudden closeness between the two of you. It was so easy to get lost in the moment when Bakugou was close. He might be gruff and rude, but you knew that deep down he cared. "Kacha?" you murmured, your voice quiet but full of emotion. He didn't reply immediately, his gaze shifting between your eyes and lips without thinking. Your hand reached out and lightly brushed his arm. A spark seemed to ignite between you, tension building up in the air. The next thing you knew, Bakugou's lips were on yours, pressing urgently but softly. It was like that he couldn't handle himself. The kiss was rough and a little bit desperate, just as you expected from him. it was also tender in a way that only he could manage. Your hands focused on his shoulders, pulling them closer as his lips seemed to move together. The world outside seemed to fade away. You were lost in him and his touch and his taste and the warmth that his body radiated. Suddenly you heard a sound of footsteps in the hallway. You quickly pulled away from Bakugou, both of you wide-eyed and breathless. You felt your heart race and you could feel the blood rushing to your face. You didn't know who had seen or heard, but you knew it was only a matter of time before someone walked in on the two of you. Bakugou cursed under his breath, his usual scowl back in place. "Damn it," he muttered. Before you could say anything, the door cracked open slightly. You turned your head to see none other than his best friend Kirishima standing in the doorway, his eyes wide with surprise. Sorry, I was just..." Bakugou, Kirishima began, but he trailed off. They saw the two of you clearly flustered and caught in the act. Your face immediately burst out in heat. You turned away, hiding your face in embarrassment, while Bakugou glared at his friend. "Kirishima, what the hell are you doing here?" Kirishima scratched the back of his neck nervously. I was just trying to grab a book. I didn't mean to walk in on, this." Bakugou growled, his face turning a bit red, the tip of his ears turning pink. You could feel the heat rising in your own cheeks, wishing you could just melt into this desk and disappear. Kirishima raised his hands in mock surrender. "Oh, okay, I get it. I'll leave you two alone." As the door clicked shut, Bakugou's scowl softened slightly. You didn't know whether you should cry, or if you should laugh, or cry from embarrassment. But one thing was sure, this probably wasn't going to be the last time. And the rest of the night, well, it was kind of a blur of awkward silence. You could barely keep your head up, too embarrassed to even face him. Your stomach had long since stopped hurting, but your heart had taken a beating. You didn't want to be caught in the act by people, especially Kirishima of all people, because he tended to have a loud mouth. You stared out the classroom window, the world seeming so far away. Your thoughts were a jumbled mess. You had kissed Bakugou, your grumpy, hard-headed boyfriend, and now the whole class probably knew. You hadn't even considered how anyone would react if they found out. It was all too much. The embarrassment made you feel like crying. When he didn't say anything, you thought maybe Bakugou was just as uncomfortable as you were. He was probably best that you didn't make a bigger deal out of it, but the sinking feeling in your chest wouldn't go away. You could feel the sting in your eyes starting to prick at the corners, and your heart ached. When Bakugou's voice broke through your haze of thoughts, it was low and soft, which was rare coming from him. You didn't respond at first, unwilling to face him, but the tension in his tone made you look up. "Don't be like that," he said, his gaze more serious than usual. His hands were clenched to the sides, his usual cocky attitude now replaced with something that almost felt like guilt. Your voice barely passed a whisper. "I didn't want anyone to know. I wasn't ready. It's too soon." You wiped your eyes quickly, trying to pretend like you weren't as upset as you were, but it was hard when your chest felt tight and the tears kept coming. His eyes softened, and before you could say anything else, he was by your side, sitting next to you in the desk, his large hands gripping it. He hesitated for a moment, but his hand gently reached for yours, and when you didn't pull away, he squeezed your hand, his fingers warm and reassuring. "You know," he stated, "I never wanted to hide you. He bit his tongue, trying to make his words come out. "I know you're shy, and I know you didn't want anyone to know, but it's just you and me. Like no one else really matters." You looked at him, still feeling the weight of the moment, but his words settled into your heart like a bomb. You wanted to believe him, but the fear of being teased or being judged was still too strong. "I'm scared, Kachan. What if they make fun of us? What if they make fun of me? What if they think it's just a big joke?" Your voice trembled, and you bit your lip to stop the tears from falling. He sighed and ran a hand through his spiky blonde hair. Then, frustrated yet gentle in his own way. Then screw them. He said, his tone filled with determination. It's no one's business but ours. I don't care if they tease me. I'm not letting anyone mess with you. He glanced at him, surprised how serious he was. You could see that fire in his eyes, the same one that pushed him to be the strongest. This wasn't Bakugou you were used to seeing. This was someone who cared more than he let on. I'm sorry, he whispered. I didn't mean to make it harder for you. He shook his head, his thumb brushing over the back of your hand in a rare show of tenderness. Don't apologize, he muttered. I'm an idiot. I should have made things clear from the start, but you're not a secret. You're just mine, and I'm proud of it. I just didn't want to push you. You felt a small smile tug at your lips, the weight in your chest decreasing. You're not an idiot, Kachan. You're just you. He rolled his eyes at the dumbass nickname, but didn't pull away. He didn't need it anymore. His actions spoke much louder than his words ever would. The next day, you tried to act normal, but the nervousness still lingered. You couldn't stop replaying what happened the previous afternoon, and you had hoped that the tension would die down, but you were wrong. When you walked into the classroom, you could feel everyone's stares on you. It was weird. There was a notable shift when you entered the room. You immediately felt self-conscious, looking around the room as if anyone noticed. Your eyes landed on him, Bakugou, who was already sitting at his desk with his usual scowl. When his eyes met yours, you felt like your stomach was churning. You didn't really know what to do. But you tried to ignore it. Tried to ignore him. You made your way to your seat. The whisper started. It wasn't loud, but it was there. Kirishima walked in. Yo, YN, he said casually. Those eyes were sparkling with mischief. Hope we didn't catch you in a bad time yesterday. You flushed, a deep breath shrinking into your seat. Don't worry, we'll keep it between us, he said with a smirk. But, you two didn't look like you were just hanging out. Your heart dropped to your stomach as you glanced at Bakugou, who was glaring at his friend. Shut the hell up, idiot, he snapped, slamming his fist on the desk. The room was quiet. Immediately, the students exchanged curious glances and you could feel the tension in the air. You got her to talk, dumbass, Bakugou added. The room just fell silent, and no one said another word. You felt an overwhelming wave of relief wash you when it was just over, like that, and class went on. It was kind of odd how he controlled things in a way. And you just tried to focus on the lesson, but your mind kept drifting to him. He was still rough around the edges, still a little bit too gruff for his own good. But today you saw a different side of him. Someone who would do anything to protect you. Someone who would just... You didn't know. When the class ended, he finally stood up and made his way to you. His footsteps were heavy but purposeful, and he reached for your side and grabbed your hand. Don't worry, he muttered. They're all idiots. You smiled, squeezing his hand. Okay, you replied. And just like that, all your nerves you had felt earlier had seemed to melt away. With Bakugou by your side, you knew everything would be okay. And you loved your classmates, but they kind of were idiots.